The sun hung low in the afternoon sky, quietly setting behind the forest trees. Oliver often took these walks after a long day at work, but that evening something felt undeniably different. A strange silence enveloped the woods, as though the forest itself were holding its breath. His heart began to race when, in the middle of the trail, he caught sight of a towering figure among the trees. It was a bear, but unlike any bear he had ever seen. The creature sat with its back to him, its head bowed as if consumed by sorrow. The muffled sound emanating from the bear was unmistakable. Oliver froze, cold sweat trickling down his back. He knew bears were dangerous, especially at dusk, but this one's behavior was unlike anything he had ever encountered. The bear didn't run away, nor did it show any signs of aggression. Instead, it raised its head and gazed directly into Oliver's eyes. Its eyes, which should have conveyed danger, were begging for something. It was as if the bear was asking for help. Oliver felt a tightness in his chest, the strangeness of the situation suffocating him. He should run, get away, and save himself. But something inside him prevented him from moving. The bear's gaze wouldn't let him. "I need to get out of here. This is insane," he thought, though his feet stayed rooted to the ground. Every instinct screamed at him to run, but he couldn't move, his curiosity holding him in place. Another sorrowful wail came from the animal, and Oliver's heart raced even faster. Why is it crying? What could have happened here, he wondered. The forest around him felt as though it was closing in. The air grew heavier, and in that moment, Oliver knew the choice he was about to make would change everything. What began as an ordinary walk in the woods turned into the beginning of something Oliver could never have imagined. He stood frozen, trying to comprehend what lay before his eyes. The bear showed no hostility. Instead, it appeared to be waiting. After a few seconds, the huge creature slowly stood up, as if it didn't want to frighten him, and took a few cautious steps towards Oliver. Fear made his body stiffen, but his feet still couldn't move. He didn't know whether to run or stay. Then something really strange happened. The bear, a few meters away from Oliver, stopped and turned its body as if asking him to follow. The animal took one last look at the man before turning completely around and starting to walk in the opposite direction. Oliver was confused, increasingly, immersed in the feeling that something bigger was coming. "What am I doing?" he muttered to himself, feeling. It was as if the animal knew exactly what it was doing. Perhaps it was madness. Perhaps it was the call of something unknown. But he felt a sudden urge to follow it. Determined not to back down, Oliver started walking. With every step, the forest seemed denser. The shadows of the trees grew, creating frightening shapes around him. "This is crazy," he thought. Still, he couldn't bring himself to stop following the bear. His feet, which had been frozen moments before, now moved with surprising resolve, as if they already knew the path he was meant to take. The bear occasionally turned its head, as though checking to see if Oliver was keeping pace. The whole experience was utterly bizarre. Oliver's mind raced, trying to make sense of what was happening. He knew full well the danger of following a wild animal, but something compelled him to continue. But something in that look, in that wail, made him ignore all signs of danger. He felt an inexplicable confidence in it. As they walked, the air became colder and heavier. Night was falling fast, and what little light remained between the trees was fading. "Where are you taking me?" he asked quietly, knowing that he obviously wouldn't get an answer. But the bear, steadfast and silent, continued along the trail. Every second seemed more surreal. The journey was only beginning, and the destination ahead held revelations far beyond anything Oliver could imagine. The forest seemed to close in. Around him, with the trees growing denser and the path narrowing with every step. As he followed the bear in silence, the weight of the unknown pressed heavily on him. The fear he had pushed aside began to resurface, swelling in his chest like a dormant storm awakening. With every step, he questioned his sanity. "Why am I doing this?" he muttered to himself as his breathing became heavy. The bear continued steadily, ahead, not looking back. Now the path it took seemed meticulously planned, dodging exposed roots and rocks that could be a trap for Oliver, as if it already knew every detail of that hostile terrain. The animal's confidence was growing in Oliver's heart, and even though his fear was increasing, he felt it was the right thing to do. The dense forest became increasingly threatening. The noise of the surrounding fauna and distant strange sounds made Oliver alert, but the bear seemed to know exactly where it was going. Suddenly, their walk was interrupted by an unexpected obstacle. A river with a strong current stretched out in front of them, cutting off their path. Oliver stopped on the bank, observing the turbulent waters that seemed deeper than he had imagined. The moon, already high in the sky, illuminated the scene in an almost ethereal way. The bear, however, didn't hesitate. It headed towards a makeshift bridge made of logs and vines that seemed about to give way. Oliver's heart thundered in his chest. "I can't cross that," he thought, staring at the bear as it confidently stepped onto the bridge. The sound of the rushing current was deafening, and the fear of plunging into the icy waters below left him rooted in place. The bear, however, made its way carefully across, stopping once it reached the other side. It turned to look at Oliver, its gaze calm and steady, as if silently encouraging him to take the leap and keep moving forward. Oliver took a deep breath, the cold wind hitting his face. He knew that if he didn't follow the bear now, he would never know what awaited him on the other side. With trembling legs, he began to cross the bridge. His steps were cautious and slow, the sound of the timbers creaking with each movement, a constant reminder that a single false step could be fatal. When he was almost halfway across, a gust of wind made the bridge sway violently. Oliver clung tightly to the vines, feeling the fear pulsing through his veins. The bear, on the other side, watched him patiently, as if it knew he would make it. With his heart pounding, Oliver finally reached the other shore. His feet touched solid ground and he let out a sigh of relief. He looked at the bear, which just turned and kept walking. A mutual trust was beginning to form between them, an inexplicable connection. The walk continued, and Oliver knew that with each step he was getting closer to discovering what this strange encounter really meant. The feeling of being on a journey deeper than he could comprehend surrounded him. The forest seemed to hide ancient secrets, and he wondered if he was ready for what was coming next. After crossing the river, Oliver sensed a change in his surroundings. The forest, once dark and suffocating, began to thin, gradually giving way to a clearing. The bear continued to lead him, moving with slow and purposeful strides. The air felt heavier, charged with an unspoken tension, and the certainty that something significant was about to unfold grew stronger within him. Little by little, rusty structures began to appear between the trees. Oliver tightened his pace, trying to understand what he was seeing ahead. When they finally reached the clearing, the sight made him stop instantly. "Sorry for the interruption. Before we continue with the story, I kindly ask you to like the video and subscribe to this channel. It is very important for us. Thank you very much." Deep in the heart of the forest, surrounded by ancient towering trees, lay an abandoned circus. The once bright colors of the tarpaulin were now faded and torn, swaying gently in the breeze. Rust clung to the metal frames of the cages, a testament to years of neglect. The place was steeped in an overwhelming sense of abandonment and melancholy. Massive cages stood empty, except for a few that still confined, forgotten, mistreated animals. Their frail bodies and lifeless eyes told a story of suffering and neglect. Oliver stood frozen, unable to believe what he was seeing. A circus? Out here, he thought, his mind racing to make sense of the eerie scene before him. The bear, however, continued walking towards the center of the circus. Oliver followed, trying to avoid the debris scattered across the floor. There were broken toys, pieces of wood, and twisted hardware. He passed an old Ferris wheel, whose rusty chairs swayed in the wind, making an ominous sound. Something about the place disturbed him deeply. The marks of the past were everywhere, and Oliver felt that the bear was somehow linked to that desolate scene. Finally, the bear stopped in front of a large, empty cage. Oliver approached cautiously, feeling the heavy air around him. He crouched down and looked into the eyes of the bear. which seemed to be reliving something painful, something from its past. You've been here before, haven't you?" Oliver murmured, his voice trembling with a deep sense of sadness as he looked at the bear. The bear gave a slight nod, a quiet but unmistakable confirmation. It was as if this place was more than just a scene of ruin. It was part of its history, a past it couldn't forget. Oliver then understood. The bear wasn't just a wild creature from the forest. It had been part of that circus, an imprisoned animal forced to entertain and serve. The pain of that place was evident in its eyes. The connection between the two intensified. Oliver looked around and realized that other animals were still trapped in deplorable conditions, waiting for help that never came. The weight of the situation fell on Oliver's shoulders. He knew he couldn't just walk away and leave those animals suffering there. "I have to do something," he thought, pulling his cell phone out of his pocket. The signal was weak, almost non-existent, but he managed to send a quick message to the authorities asking for help before the signal disappeared completely. He knew he had to act fast. The bear had brought Oliver there for a reason, and now he understood. The history of that abandoned circus was about to change, and he was the key to that transformation. However, what he didn't know was that the arrival of help would bring to light secrets much deeper than he could have imagined. The air around Oliver seemed thicker as he explored the abandoned circus. The rusty fittings, broken toys, and forgotten animals gave the place a feeling of deep sadness. Every step Oliver took brought him closer to a greater revelation. He knew there was more to discover about the bear, which now seemed to be carrying an invisible burden. He walked up to a large tent that had been partially destroyed by time. The faded curtains, which had once been vibrant and colorful, swayed gently in the wind. As Oliver stepped inside, he immediately felt that this was the heart of the circus. In the center of the tent stood a circular ring, surrounded by rows of crumbling, neglected seats. He scanned the space, trying to imagine what it had once been. A lively, vibrant place filled with cheers, laughter, and applause. It was then that he noticed the marks on the dirt floor, deep, jagged scratches, as if some animal had been forced to perform tricks repeatedly there. The bear stepped into the tent behind him, halting as its gaze fell on the track. Its once strong eyes now held only pain and distant memories. Oliver approached slowly, aware that this was a turning point. "The bear's story. You were part of it, weren't you?" he whispered, meeting the creature's deep, sorrowful eyes. The bear bowed its head in silence, as if confirming Oliver's suspicions. The realization hit hard. This bear was not just a forest dweller. It was a victim of a cruel past, forced to entertain, to perform tricks for an audience that never saw its suffering. Oliver's empathy grew. Now the silence in that place seemed deafening. Every piece of that ruined circus told a story of pain, exploitation, and abuse. But more than anything, it told the story of that bear, who was now free but still bore the invisible scars of captivity. As Oliver looked around, his gaze landed on the other cages, some still holding animals trapped inside. Each one seemed utterly defeated, their hope long extinguished. His mind raced, a whirlwind of emotions taking over. He couldn't just stand, but he had to find a way to help them. The message he had sent to the authorities before losing the signal was out of his control now. He could only hope that it would be received. Oliver picked up his cell phone again, desperately trying to find some signal, but nothing. Desperation began to creep in. He knew time was running out, and those animals couldn't wait. He looked at the bear, which now seemed so human in its pain, and felt a strong urge to act. "I'm going to help you. I'm going to help all of you," Oliver muttered to himself as he walked back to the rusty cages. He tried to open one of the locks, but they were firmly secured. Oliver's heart raced. He knew that alone he wouldn't be able to free those animals. Rescue had to come, and fast. As he walked back toward the bear, a thought struck him. Maybe there was a way to break open the cages or uncover a tool buried somewhere in the wreckage. He was about to look for something useful when he heard a distant sound, the rumble of engines. Someone was approaching. Help was finally on the way, and Oliver knew that this would be the decisive moment. The abandoned circus, with all its dark secrets, was about to be revealed to the world. And with that, the bear that had led him there would finally get its justice. The sound of the engines intensified, and Oliver felt a mixture of relief and anxiety. The story wasn't over yet. Something bigger was to come. The sound of the engines grew, breaking the haunting silence of the abandoned circus. Oliver felt a wave of relief mixed with tension. He ran to the entry point where, in the distance, vehicle lights began to illuminate the forest. The help he desperately needed was finally arriving. Within minutes, several cars pulled up in front of the circus. Out of the vehicles came conservationists and police officers, led by a rescue team specializing in caring for wild animals. Oliver felt the adrenaline rush through his veins as he went to meet them, with the bear by his side, now a symbolic figure in the situation. "Are you Oliver, the one who called for help?" asked one of the conservationists, a woman with a stern expression and eyes brimming with resolve. Oliver nodded swiftly, drawing a deep breath as he gathered himself to explain all that he had discovered. "Yes, I found this bear, and it brought me here. There are other animals trapped in the cages, and they need to be freed now," he replied, urgently, pointing inside the circus. The rescue workers quickly organized the team, spreading out around the site with tools to open the cages and unlock the corroded fittings. Oliver, feeling the weight of the moment, joined the group. He helped unlock the cages one by one, finding mistreated animals with desolate looks on their faces, some injured, others so weak they could barely stand. As the cage doors opened, the animals hesitated to come out. Those who had been imprisoned for so long seemed unable to believe that they were finally free. Oliver watched, his heart squeezed as the conservationists gently encouraged them to come out, some of them carrying the injured animals with the utmost care. In the background, while the teams worked, the police officers explored the circus, trying to understand what was really going on there. The bleak scene was coming to life. What had once been a place of joyful spectacle had turned into a field of exploitation and pain. "This is bigger than we thought," one of the police officers said, his voice grim, as he recorded the evidence of abuse. The weight of those words hit Oliver hard. He understood now that the abandoned circus was just the surface of something much darker. While the animals were being removed, the bear who had guided Oliver there stood beside him, as if it were finally seeing the end of an era of suffering. Its eyes reflected a different kind of calm now, as if it somehow knew that its mission was accomplished. The team began to take the animals to rescue vehicles, where they would be cared for and rehabilitated. Oliver, exhausted and relieved, watched the operation unfold around him. Deep down, he knew that the story would go beyond that moment. The abandoned circus would be investigated, and the illegal practices of animal exploitation would be revealed to the world. As the last rescue vehicle drove away, carrying the animals to safety, Oliver turned for one final look at the bear. No words were exchanged, but the silence between them spoke volumes. They both understood. Freedom had been reclaimed, yet the journey was far from over. Oliver watched as the bear slowly disappeared into the forest, free at last, though forever scarred by its past. The moment left an indelible mark on Oliver, and he knew his life had been irreversibly changed. Days had passed since the rescue at the abandoned circus, but the images of that place and the imprisoned animals still echoed in Oliver's mind. He couldn't forget the look in the bear's eyes that had guided him there. That experience had changed something deep inside him. From a simple adventurer in search of tranquility in the forest, he had become someone with a mission, a greater cause. The story of the abandoned circus quickly gained media attention. Newspapers and investigative reports revealed to the public the extent of the illegal animal exploitation practices that had been taking place there for years. The authorities closed the case with the arrest of those formerly responsible for the circus. But Oliver's journey had only just begun. He became an active defender of animal rights, something he had never imagined for his life. The trauma he saw in the eyes of the bear and the other animals made him realize the importance of fighting for the protection of those who had no voice. He began sharing his story, describing how an improbable encounter with a bear led him to uncover and expose a hidden haven of cruelty in the heart of the forest. As Oliver's talks gained traction, they drew widespread attention, pulling him deeper into the work of animal protection organizations. He traveled to various parts of the country, taking part in campaigns to raise awareness about the treatment of animals and using his personal experience as living proof that anyone could make a difference. As for the bear, it became a symbol of hope and resilience. Photographs of that bear walking to freedom were widely shared, and it became an icon of the fight against animal exploitation. Whenever Oliver looked at those photos, he felt a profound mix of sorrow and gratitude. Sorrow for the suffering the bear had endured, and gratitude for the unexpected fate that had brought them together. Even after the rescue, Oliver continued to visit the forest. Every time he wandered its trails, he sensed that the place had changed for him forever. He had become deeply devoted to protecting the forest and the creatures that thrived within it. Though he never saw the bear again, Oliver knew in his heart that it was still out there, living freely in the boundless beauty of the woods. Did you enjoy this story? What do you think about the circus? Do you find them enjoyable, or do you believe they should be abolished because of the harm they cause to animals? Let us know in the comments below. If you liked the story, subscribe to this channel and leave a like. Luke never forgot that day, the makeshift bridge, the bear's silent gaze, and the circus that held so many secrets. In his heart, he knew he had made the right decision. Thank you so much for listening. See you in the next video. Have a great day.